All right, welcome back to Two Dudes That Game. This is the Two Dudes Review Stuff segment of the Two Dudes That Game channel. We're gonna patent that name, Review Stuff. That's what it's called.
Reviews stuff or review
Reviews.
stuff?
Two dudes that review stuff.
Two dudes that review stuff.
Or it's gonna be this is reviews stuff by Two Dudes That Game.
Yeah, I got nothing. You can work on it.
Or it's reviewing stuff.
I tried to give you. I said I tried to give it a title. You changed that in 30 seconds. So
I didn't change your title in 30 seconds.
I mean, it was so memorable. Even I don't remember what I titled that.
You'd have to give me a specific here, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that.
No.
All right. So today we're going to be getting into The Last of Us, episode 2, James. This was we kind of want to get your thoughts on this episode here because I feel like it was a little bit different pacing than the first, but we still kind of got the same kind of I guess you could say outline of an episode of like going into the past, seeing a little bit, and then moving through the episode. So how did you feel overall? Did you feel like the episode hit? Did it not hit?
I definitely think it hit. It's a great episode. Again, I'm coming at this episode as I'm watching it as someone that hasn't played the game. And then as I watch the episodes, of course, I always check in. I love IGN, so I always look at kind of the back and forth between the game and I know you've been fighting the sickness a little bit, so we didn't record yesterday like we normally do. And I said, hey, I'm kind of a little worried about this shot for shot, word for word directly from the game. It's starting to not be that exciting to me. And I don't know if that's the right direction. You know, every gamer person in the world is probably like, no, this is the writing and the game was great and they should do it exactly the same. And that feeling in the pit of my stomach that I'm starting to get is almost why it's better when they don't do it exactly like the game. And I know that the story is great, but how much longer are the gaming people going to feel like they are inclined to keep tuning in? That's just my initial worry and thought. Again, I'm not saying that it's bad writing. I'm not saying that the show is bad. And if you have nothing to do with the game, it's going to be great. I think if you're I do the other podcast, Parents versus Gaming. If you're trying to get your parents to understand what a story is really like in a video game, so far this is perfect. I think it's a perfect balance to show people and parents can really understand like, oh wow, video games really do have, it's not just shooting things and Mario jumping over blocks, but it just gets to the point like, is there going to be any kind of twist? Is there going to be any kind of differences from the game that are so dramatic that, one, are the gamers going to be okay with it and not lose their absolute mind? And two, is it still going to draw that casual audience? Now, I know there's subtle things different, just like at the end of this episode, exactly what happens and how they react. I know there are small changes that makes
there was a significant difference in this episode.
I understand that.
One on timing and pacing and when they get there, but I think
there is a lot of shot for shot and word for word.
Yeah, but I think you're really pushing too far into that because the way I look at it, the biggest issue you can do with any one of these remakes, let's say it's any remake that you have out there, is you go and you don't capture the iconic scenes and moments in the way they were meant to be captured or improve upon them. There are plenty of things in these last couple episodes where the scenes weren't identical and they improved upon them. The pacing of where they got to places to do the story improved upon the story. But like, if you go back to the scene from last episode of Joel holding his daughter getting gunned down, there was no way to make that scene better.
No, I understand.
And portray what you needed. So going word for word was perfect at that point. So there's, and again, they also let the, and I would say it's not word for word. They let the characters, portray it in that way. But I think you have to kind of look at it as like, I think this show is going to be more about the backstory of how a lot of this happened because we don't have any of that. In the game, the way you get the backstory is by picking up newspapers and reading them, or finding notes on the ground and doing stuff like that. You have no idea of how this happened. So in this, we're gonna start with some more backstory here. But I think next episode, my personal opinion, you're gonna see a very far divergence from the game. You're gonna start to see them taking their liberties here. Because even in that trailer, and we haven't done that trailer yet, so I'm not going to say anything, but even in that trailer, I was kind of like, that's different. Like this isn't how these guys are to get, like, there's some significant changes. And whether or not they're going to improve upon that's my question there. So yes, I think in the first 2 episodes, staying as close as you could to the storyline of the game was a good idea to get everybody hooked. Now I think you can start to diverge from that, and you can start telling your own little bit story. So I think from here on out, you're going to have iconic scenes that are going to be pretty close, but everything else is going to be their new interpretation of it. I think this was just to get you pulled in.
Gotcha.
And also, as a gamer, as watching this, I'm just sitting here like, is this going to be different? Is it not going to be different? I'm kind of interested. Are they going to do the same thing? Like, what are they going to change? How are they going to change it? Like, I'm interested in that. Now, if we get to the 7th episode and we've watched I could have just gone online and watched, all the cutscenes put together to see the story. Like, okay, I'll be a little bit upset about that. But in the first 2, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh man, we've got way too much of the same. A lot of what has been the same, I don't think you would want to change because it hits so well.
Gotcha. Yes,
maybe they could have not made it so easy for Tommy to walk around the car. Okay, well, we'll change that up a little bit there. Maybe they add a little bit of more difficulty to the story there since that. But the changes that they've made, I think, sell the characters. But in the beginning of this, the prologue and the first start of this really story, I don't know how you could tell any other way.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten out of we get out of the city, we're starting to get out to the west. Now it opens up this whole world. Like, we don't even have to go to the same places anymore. Like, we just had to get out of this first. And there was a very defined way on how they get out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right. So let's jump into the episode here. We're going to break this down. Now, we're going to be a little bit quicker through some of this. There's no reason to drag some of these things out. So we get the opening scene. Again, Ender talked about, you talked about how it goes, again, just like the first episode, it's showing something in the past. Of course, it's not
we're in
super
here.
past. We're in Jakarta, September 24th, 2003. I believe this is a day or two before.
2 days before the outbreak.
2 days before the outbreak. And we're not exactly sure. Now, we see these guards, military of some sort, go into this restaurant, and everyone's kind of looking around, and they point someone in the back, and it turns out to be this old lady. And you're like, so immediately I'm like, what? Is this a crime lord? What's going on here? Now, of course, I remember the radio thing from the first episode, so Jakarta had some sort of thing going on. So obviously we're about to see maybe the start of it or what happened. So
yeah, I mean, and also you got to remember, in these countries, to have your military walk in and say you're coming with us normally is not a good thing. This lady is terrified. She has no idea why these guys are picking her up.
Yeah. So she finally has a little conversation in the car, and they say, you're the professor of mycology, right? Because she's terrified. She's like, I think you have the wrong person. And they're like, you're the professor of mycology from the University of Indonesia. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well,
if you don't know what mycology is, it's the study of fungus.
Fungus, yeah. So he's like, we have the right person. And then it just goes on. Like, they don't say anything else to her. So she's kind of getting rushed and ushered through this hospital of some sort that we assume. And she gets taken into this room, and this woman starts trying to explain kind of what she's going to give. And the military person says, let her see it, let her diagnose it herself. Like, they basically want no outside influence. They just want her to look at something on a microscope slide and give her.
Well, I did like that, and my wife really liked that, because she always felt in movies, they always, like, push and like have someone tell them something about it before they look at it to make their own opinion. They're like, this is how you would actually have someone come in. Like you would have a third party that knows nothing about it come in and take a look at it as an expert in their field to give you their opinion, just to kind of isolate your thoughts and what you think is really going on.
Yeah.
Now she would have taken a whole lot more time to look at this. I love how she takes her glasses off, and there's definitely, and she looks at it like not even a second and a half, and she knows everything about it. But
well,
okay,
it's so
we got to pace.
No,
it
but I see. I think that's the point. She looks at this slide and she sees something so basic that in her field that would be like, yeah, of course this is, what'd you say, hydrocordyceps or Ophiocordyceps or whatever the actual term is of this fungus. Here, let me look and get the exact word. I don't want anyone flipping out at me here.
Cordyceps. It cannot survive in humans.
Yeah, it's the cordyceps. But this is what I like.
Why did you prepare it with human skin samples?
Yes. She says, why did you use chlorazole to prepare the slide? She's very confused because this should just be some sort of plant fungus. You would not use chlorazole to prepare the slide. So I do think it's on purpose, Ender, that she looks at it very quickly because I think it's something super common, especially in her field. Like, of course, this is what this
she
is.
wouldn't have known all of that from looking at it the way it is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's
very
small.
They immediately answer her because that is the preparation used for samples taken from a human. And immediately she's like, what are you talking about? That's not possible. It can't live in a human. And it brought me back to that first episode where the guy says, talking about the fungus adapting. What if adapting? Global warming, all these different things. So eventually she goes into the morgue area. She's all, bundled up.
Okay. HBO, if you're listening.
Here you go.
You do not have to find a reason to have a naked woman in every show. Like, this little autopsy that this lady does has nothing to do with any of the areas of this woman that could have been covered up. She does not need to be laying here butt naked. Like, we do not need to see bush.
It's for effect.
There's no effect here. This is HBO.
The shock factor.
This is HBO requiring to have some form of naked body.
Maybe you don't know. Maybe Neil Druckmann is a fan of Game of Thrones, and he was like, "I will only do it if we can have multiple naked people." So we have to be on HBO.
Just looked at each other and was like, "Really, HBO? Really?" Like,
hey, Neil Druckmann directed this episode.
I know. My question is, really? Like, you couldn't put a towel.
So she goes into this naked Indonesian woman. And she starts inspecting. She sees the area of the fungus.
Not naked, buck naked.
Okay, so she's completely naked. She sees the area of the fungus infection, kind of like it looks like a bite. She takes a scalpel, and as soon as she hits it, you see the fungus come out of her ankle area. And she asks, "Is this a bite from a human?" They say yes. Next thing you know, she goes up into the mouth area, and I kind of thought to myself, how did she know? And we know from watching the show it's up there, but how did she know to even think to look there? I guess it's because that's her specialty, and maybe that's something that she would have expected it to do.
What the other scientist was saying, like they try to control their host.
Yeah.
So I think she's like, okay, if this is all the way down here, has it gotten to the brain? Like, is it?
Well, so yeah, and if they're biting, it must be up there too, I guess. So yeah, she pulls something out of the mouth, and it's the fungus that we saw in the first episode coming out of that old woman's mouth, and it's kind of gross. Next thing. Yeah. So
there's one key thing here you kind of have to look at is when she pulls the fungus out.
Oh, it's moving.
It's moving. So there's the and I don't think a lot of people would know this, and they don't really state it, but fungus are not reliant on the host to be alive to keep themselves alive. They will eat rotten flesh.
Yeah.
That's what's different than a virus. A virus is 100% dependent on the host being alive.
Like Walking Dead, as soon as they shoot the zombie in the head, it's done. It's done
because it's
completely
viral.
Done.
And that's where this is a whole lot different and a whole lot more of a problem because it's going to stay alive in the rotten flesh. It can eat rotten flesh where viruses cannot.
So we cut to the woman sitting on the couch, and she's having a little bit of dialogue here, and she's getting a cup of tea. And the main point of this dialogue is she kind of wanted to know when it happened. They said it's approximately 30 hours ago. They said it's on this West Grain factory, and she says, "Oh, basically a perfect substrate, which is basically a perfect place for this fungus to grow and develop and get up there."
To talk about that with the grain.
Okay, go ahead.
So I didn't notice it until
it's a flour and grain factory.
So go back to the first episode. You see that Joel and them don't have pancake mix.
Yeah, they don't have pancake mix. They have the bread theory that everybody had been talking about for a week.
Yeah, they don't get cake. But if you look at them, there's the shot, the cookies. She doesn't eat the cookies because they're raisin. So they're dodging all of this flour and grain the whole time. And then you see the cut of them feeding the grandmother biscuits. So we always had this theory of like when they made the theory very thoughtful of, oh, did we go into the city and get it? No, they've been eating all this grain food and they got it from that way. They just happened to dodge all of this grain. And
I'm going to tell you right now, Ender, I would be screwed if this happened in real life.
No, but that also goes into his comment. We laughed at it, but his comment of being on Atkins actually like saves him from this. So just interesting how close they could have been to being infected, but they didn't. Exactly. It didn't mean anything to me until like right then I was like, oh, that's why they were so heavy on dodging all this like awesome food.
Yeah. Now here's my favorite part. She kind of asked exactly what happened. This coworker became crazy, bit 3 of them. They locked her in a room. The police came. She tried to attack them. They shot her. And they go on to talk a little bit more about, okay, well, what happened to the other people? And they said they rounded up, they basically executed them. And then she's like, okay, final question. Okay. And I could see the wheels turning. Okay, we've contained this. No problem. Okay, who bit her? We don't know. And she starts getting nervous and she said, oh, so they're still out there. And then they talked about people missing. And she's like, well, how many? 14 people missing. And she's like, she starts shaking and her hands are going crazy. She sets down the tea. And he's basically saying, we need medicine. We need a vaccine. We need you to come up with something. And he's like, what do you do with it? And she's basically says, there is no medicine. There is no vaccine. There's nothing you can do. And he says, what do you do? And I just kind of thought to myself, oh, I don't know if she's even going to have an answer. And she drops an answer that I was like, oh, wow, did not see that coming. She basically says, bomb. You need to bomb the city. Now, Jakarta is probably one of the largest, if not the largest city of population in Indonesia, right? So she immediately asks if she can go home to be with her family. There is no way to stop this. You have to, like, if you want to save humanity, you bomb this city today. And all of us in it. You, me, like, she's like, we're all done. Like, it's it.
Yeah, it's...
And I really kind of took me by surprise.
I'm sitting here watching this, and we'll kind of get to the point. There's another further in the episode where they talk about it. When my wife was talking about it after the show, she's like, "Yeah, they just like need to burn everything. Like that's the only. It's all you can do." And then when she says like dropping bombs, like it's like that's all you could do with something like this. Would try to. When you have no idea where it's coming from or how to contain it, and it's this deadly, obviously, killing them all is the only option.
Mm.
And then we get our cool little intro.
We get our new little intro and our credits. Always, it's really cool, of course, the way that spreads out, and you can tell the fungus is starting to spread even more. And then we cut to Ellie sleeping on what we think they make it seem like it's a field of grass. And it's also funny that she's like, looks like she's had the greatest night of sleep of her life. She's looking around. Everything looks really beautiful. She finally the camera pans around and you see Joel and Tess just sitting there. Joel's got his gun in his hand ready to gun her down. And you quickly remember.
They just found out.
They just found out she was bitten. So they think she's infected and she's trying to convince them that they weren't. So I'm assuming here that they have not slept a second.
No, they don't.
They don't trust her. They stared right at her. They're ready to just gun her down, and they're already arguing. But they make her stay there. They want to see the bite again. it looks like it's healing, let alone getting worse.
And also, the another little thing there, the butterfly that flies over top of her again. There's a bunch of butterflies, and they continue to move on with that part of the story as well.
They get into a little bit of a conversation. What was Marlene doing with an infected kid? She says, I wasn't infected. And then they wanted to know what kind of test that they were doing. And she says, they made me count to 10 and hold out my hand and keep it steady. And they kind of realized, okay, you know, that proved everything. And I loved how Ellie immediately goes into, well, maybe it was the fact I didn't turn into a fucking monster.
Yeah. I mean, I love this girl's attitude.
Bella Ramsey is just solidifying this character to me. She's crushing it, and she's got this attitude about her, and I think she's portraying this role.
Well, and now I understand why the second word she learned with an English accent was fuck, because I think every third sentence as she's dropping it in this.
Oh, in this show, she says fuck constantly. Yeah.
It's perfect.
So she asks if she can go... she needs to go to the bathroom, so they say, hey, you can go back there, you can find a spot. Now, I find this was a little bit funny because Tess ends up throwing her a magazine, and it's almost like Tess all of a sudden has this, like, motherly, like, tendencies to her, and she's trying to be careful, but
well, I think
Joel is not.
I think Tess is starting to at this point, Tess is starting to understand and realize the importance of her.
Yeah.
Joel's lost humanity. Like, Joel doesn't. He doesn't care anymore. It's survival.
He just wants to do this to get to Tommy.
Yeah. And I did think when they kind of like go to Joel's hand of him shaking, and they had just talked about like steady hand shaking, and she's like, oh, a hairline fracture, and he's like, yeah, it'll heal fast. And
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand that since you're punching a human and not one of the monsters, but he has definitely got a broken hand at this point.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I find interesting is Joel's immediately right now, he's arguing. He wants to go back. He wants to take her back to the QZ, hand her off, sneak her back in, do whatever, and just be done with it. They'll find a different way to get the battery in the car and all they need. Tess reminds him this is probably the best way. If we bring her back in, someone's going to find her. They're going to see her arm. They're going to kill her. Like, they're not even going to give her an opportunity. And, you know, like you said, Tess is starting to feel that maybe this is real. So let's just get the job done.
And I also think there's a line there where Joel says better them than us. I think he doesn't want to shoot a girl. He still thinks she's going to turn.
Yeah.
In his mind, it's like, okay, she just didn't turn as fast. Okay. Everyone turns.
Yeah. So then they start eating. They say, hey, do you want some food? And it looks like just jerky or something. And,
well, it's I can't remember what they call it in the game.
Food rations of some sort.
No, it's a specific, so because of all the grain issues, it's like mushed, because there's no animal. It's like mushed vegetables and stuff together.
Gotcha.
It's these specific things they had that have zero grain, but she's sitting here eating a sandwich.
Yeah, so she's like, no, Marlene packed me some stuff. Next thing you know, she's eating a chicken sandwich. And I was like, wait, so she can eat bread? It's cool now? But I guess because she can't get sick. But so, I mean, like, she says smugglers must have got this to us. So, but they're freaking out. They're like...
I think the chicken part they're freaking out about.
Because it's so good.
Yeah.
I think the bread was an oversight. I don't know if that was on purpose or... I mean, everything in a TV show has to be on purpose.
I think the bread was a thing from the directors of like, she can still eat bread while no one else can. You know, no one else is even going to attempt to eat bread because they're afraid of getting sick. Like, think about it. You know, all of this stuff runs through grain and bread and all those things. You think you're just going to eat bread.
I mean, the bread looks pretty fresh, Ender. It's not like that bread's been sitting around for 20 years.
Doesn't mean that it's not in there still.
So why are they still making it? That's my point. Who's still making bread?
I don't know.
That's my... I don't know. I thought that part was a little bit dumb. Because, yeah, granted that she can eat it, but who else is...
I mean, maybe Fedra's making it and they're stealing it from Fedra, and Fedra's just not giving it to them.
And it's gluten-free?
Probably.
Like, who knows? Anyways, they realize that she must be super important. She's eating chicken and she's basically got better rations and everything. They want to know exactly why she's important. And it's funny because the last episode, Marlene said, what I'm about to tell you, don't tell anybody because they'll probably kill you. And...
Well, I mean, it's kind of like
Ellie just has this here. Great. I was told not to tell anyone, and the first people I'm with, here I am telling them.
Yeah, but it's not like she doesn't have a choice. They're not going to take her where she needs to go if she doesn't say something.
Yeah. Now she starts to say exactly that she's the cure and all this, and they hear. I mean, Joel starts speaking exactly what it is. They've heard that. It sounds like they've heard this a million times. There's always some sort of miracle cure around the corner that never seems to pan out, and it just seems like he's like, yeah, whatever. So him and Tess argue a little bit more, and they decide they're gonna go. And right as they're about to leave, Ellie asks, "Can I have a gun?" Tess is like,
well, you missed
no.
her little joke there of when she started to do her like she's gonna turn.
Oh, he said. Well, he says. Okay, Joel finally says, "Okay, let's go." And but he says, "But if she makes one twitch," and then she starts going like turning into a monster.
The girl's got balls. The girl's got, because this guy wants to shoot her. Like, and I think she just watched him kill a guy he knew.
Yeah.
So she got balls on her to be able to like, continue to make these jokes.
But I do like how Tess, they're packing up their stuff, they're getting ready to head out, and she sees them pick up a gun, and Ellie's like, "Can I have a gun?" And they're like, "No," and she's like, "Great, I'll just throw a fucking sandwich at them." So she's definitely got a smart mouth, that's for sure.
Yep.
So they go outside, and again, Ellie is
love this
blown away.
Shot, the tower shot.
The tower shot is really, really great, and Ellie's completely blown away. Oh wow, and they're like, "Yeah, looks different in the daylight, doesn't it?"
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you can just see where, and this kind of goes back, and I always wondered this because I'm like, we're only going 20 years forward. Like, how did all these buildings fall over? Like, what the hell happened here? And then we kind of get into that as they walk in, is like the big crater. Is this where they bombed? So it's like they took that mentality even to the U.S. Like the U.S.
Yeah, they bombed everything. Now it does seem like, that. I mean, they basically say it worked. The bombing worked here in Boston.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Which is why I think it's a QZ.
Yeah, like, but it didn't work in other places.
Yeah. So I think in the US though, it's a little bit different because our population is dense in certain areas, but we are spread out a whole lot more than you would think of like a place like Indonesia where everybody is in the city. Like you don't have a lot of people on the outskirts compared to we do, just because you don't have the infrastructure. We have a very broad infrastructure across the US.
Yeah, no, I like the dialogue here again, and I don't know how much this is ripped from the game, but they come outside and they decide they need to get to the state courthouse, basically, which is where they're supposed to meet these fireflies at on the west side, and they say, well, we can go the long way or the short way.
This isn't out of the game. Like this is all
changed a little bit, but they say we're going the long way or the short way, and this is like, well, we go the long way or the we're fucking dead way. And I love how Ellie's like, well, I vote long way just based on the limited information you gave me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I think it's there, and then we kind of get this conversation of just like talking about how she got bit and what she was doing, and
now I do like this quick little cut over of a restaurant, because remember we opened the episode.
It looks beautiful.
We opened the episode with a restaurant, and then it shows this restaurant, and I think this is just basically to symbolize. And this is something to do in The Walking Dead a lot. I think it's to symbolize, like, it just happened. Like, in the middle of the day. Like, this stuff, like, the breakout happened and
well, they were sleeping in a barber shop, and then now they're in that you see the restaurant. You also, one just Easter egg for the gamers out there. You'll see she walks past a giraffe. And then, like, later on, the giraffe, that giraffe was, like, in Ellie's room. In Sarah's room. And then also, there's other things as we go forward. I'm gonna be interested if they bring the giraffe into play or not.
Yeah. So then Tess starts talking to Ellie about how she got bit, and they talk about she was in the mall in the QZ. She got bit down there. No one's supposed to go down there, and she's like, yeah, that one. She's like, yeah, whatever. I snuck in, and she does lie here because they ask if she was by herself. She says yes. Now we know that.
Yeah. So that whole mall is the DLC.
The DLC is so. I assume we're probably gonna get some flashback scenes of exactly what went down.
They're hinting at that way too hard to not.
Yeah, she says one came out of nowhere, and she said, I thought I got away, but clearly not. But Tess does ask if you're alone, and she says,
the DLC also kind of clears up why Marlene cares so much. Because you kind of like are always wondering why the leader of the fireflies gives two craps about this girl that got bit.
Well, remember in the first episode, she did say she's the one that put her in the Fedra camp, so she's had her since a
but
baby.
you kind of understand why she did all of it because
Yeah.
of the relationship that they actually have that Ellie doesn't really understand.
She talks about being. Here's the other thing I thought was funny is they say, "Do you have mom, dad, anyone going to come after you?" She says, "No, I'm an orphan." They're like, "Boyfriend?" And she's like, no. And I don't know if that's because she's like young or because she's gay that she's like, no, like maybe there would be a girlfriend, but definitely not a boyfriend.
I think it was kind of her like
You could take it either way, I think.
either way. Her character, I believe is gay. Through the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that was just kind of that there.
So then it cuts through and they're walking across the bridge, of course, and they get down and they open up this. I don't really know where they are. Is this
The hotel.
The hotel, okay.
Yeah, it's
So
like the Ritz-Carlton.
They get to the hotel. They talk about staying there, and it's really funny because they're like, "We have to go on the other side," and Ellie's like, "I can't swim."
Dude,
And Joel finds
I'm
it
gonna tell
funny
you-
because he jumps in. But from what I heard, that the game there's a lot of carrying Ellie around the
Okay.
water.
Okay. I have PTSD from this freaking game about finding little planks to put Ellie on and swim around with her and try to figure out these damn puzzles because the girl can't swim. Like, spend a week, teach this girl how to swim, and we would have gotten through
She
this
tells
a whole
you.
lot faster.
She tells you. Do you think there was pools in the QZ?
I'm just saying, like, find a pond. There's a pond somewhere. Like, I don't know, but the amount of time, the amount of water in this game that you're like pushing her on these little like raft plank things is just like, oh, I do not want to do this anymore.
You know, it's funny because they're walking through the water, though. Joel does jump down there and prove to her that they, it's waist high. So they're walking through the water, and immediately, Ellie's supposed to be, what, 14?
Yeah.
And they keep throwing in these scenes. At the end of the day, Ellie's a kid. Ellie is going to be mischievous and goofy and act out. And it kind of reminds me of my 15-year-old stepdaughter. Like, we'll go somewhere and try to be super serious. And she'll turn everything into being funny. Something is funny. Something about somebody's butt crack or something. And you see that in you see that in Ellie. She immediately runs over, starts playing with the bellhop cart. She's like, right this way to your room. She's like, just being a kid. And as she's pushing this thing, this skeleton falls and she screams. Of course, she yells "fuck" again. Probably the 15th. So you could play a drinking game with her saying the F word in this show.
I know. I think we should. But I also think it kind of. You have to remember here in this game too, and in this show, there's not a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Like it's mostly adults. There's not a lot of kids, and mainly they're the future. So her actually being able to be a kid for these short, brief seconds, and then they snap you right back into the reality of this horrifying place that you're at. So they're doing a really good job at that. Of like, she's a kid. She wants to have fun. She is the hope. She is all those things. But then here's this skeleton that falls to remind you, this isn't a game. This isn't time to have fun. This is a serious, serious thing that we're doing here. And she doesn't get to live a life as a kid.
So they get to the top of the hotel area. They got to go into some sort of room that they're trying to get into, but everything seems to be locked. So this whole hallway is caved in, collapsed in. There's rocks everywhere. And they decide someone's got to go through it. It is kind of funny because Ellie says, oh, well, clearly I'm the smallest. Let me go. I'll go around and unlock everything. And Tess is like, no, because if you're dead, this doesn't work.
Nothing.
We get nothing. So you're staying here. So Tess makes her way, which I think is funny because this is the first time we get a little Joel and Ellie alone time, right? They're kind of stuck together.
Well, since he went to sleep for the last time they were together.
Yeah. So have a little bit of conversation. She's flipping a knife around. He's trying to make conversation with her. He says, hey, where'd you learn to do that with a knife? She's like, the circus. So she I think it's just a show being a smart ass teenager and Joel just, it's like he doesn't know how to handle this at all. And then she starts to, bring up, hey, are you and Tess kind of like a thing? And he's like, pass. He has no interest in opening up with her at all or having any kind of things.
Yeah.
How'd you end up in Boston? Pass. Like he does not have any interest in giving her anything to know about him.
Well, I think he only wants to give her information that's going to keep her alive, because the one question he does open up about is her question about the infected. And basically, like, how long do they last? And you kind of learn that most of them die quickly. Some of them last 2-3 months. Some of them a decades.
Yeah.
And that kind of starts telling you the level of monster that you could see in this show, just based off of how long they've been infected.
So next thing, they hear a little rustling in the room on the other side of the door, and Joel stands up real quick, gets all funny, and I hear, all you hear is Tess say, "Joel, put down the gun." I'm assuming that she couldn't see him. She just knew how he was. So that was her way of just saying, "Don't be an idiot. Put down the gun. It's just me." But I didn't see anything that showed that she could see him. But they say, "What now?" They go in, and you can see whatever they were trying to get to looks like it's been completely, like, it's gone. Whatever may or may not have been in this room, nothing is there. They go out, they look outside, and it's kind of the where they need to get to.
Yeah.
But
so there's a lot. There's also a big difference here, and I'm not going to get that deep into it, but they skip over them actually having to go through the two towers.
okay.
So there's a huge part in the game of trying to get through these towers, that honestly I don't think you could do on film. Like, I just don't think they would have ruined their entire budget just trying to do that scene for the whole show, with how much CG they would have needed and explosions and graphics and stuff like that. So they do diverge. This is different. All of this is different.
Yeah. Now the
These
new
locations are the same, but the
path
what they're
is a little bit
doing
different.
is different. Yeah.
So they lean over the edge. They see all these infected zombie-like creatures, like, just feeding on other people, other infected. I'm not sure exactly, but it's just hundreds. And you see that more and more people must have came to the city. They went inside, got infected, then they kind of spread outside. But Ellie notices that they're basically in unison. So it's like they're all connected in some way. You see them, they'll roll over on one side and it, like, trickles like a waterfall effect. You know, almost like a wave goes all the way down, and they all kind of do things in unison and together. So it's clearly like they're connected somewhere. And Tess and Joel basically explain that this fungus, this thing, there's like vines or some sort that can travel, you know, under the city. And
this is
this I understand that is very different. And it comes down to what I think you're learning. This is replacing the spores, like where they don't have to wear the mask everywhere.
Yeah, I think as they're trying to figure out, well, I don't know if it's necessarily replacing the spores. I think it's just making it more terrifying.
Yeah. So
like let's really think about it. Like, okay, these guys, not only do we have this fungus that we're dealing with in these people, but here's all this growth that's now across how far, like, they can communicate with each other, they can feel together. Like, to me, it's just more terrifying, if anything.
Yeah, no. What you're getting out of this is they talk about how, you know, if you kill a couple infected on one side and they're connected through these vines, through the ground, through whatever, they'll communicate, and dozens of infected from maybe a mile away. Well, they know you're there now,
game, when you
and they're coming.
You are safe. That was the whole thing in the game. If you kill them all, you're safe. If you hide from them all, you're safe.
But could you imagine if they were able to make the game? And I know game engines and stuff are different. You know, Days Gone tried to do something like that, World War Z. But imagine killing them in the game, and there 100 more on their way to you.
You would never get through the game. You would never get through the game.
I'm
sorry. Like when I was listening to this, I'm like, how the hell do they survive? Like, how? Like, there's no way. If all of a sudden a horde's gonna come after you every single time you drop one of these guys, like, yeah, I think it just gives that level of, like, this is terrible, because even when I go to kill one, I immediately have to be ready to get the fuck out of wherever I'm at.
Now, what I like here is that, you know, we've kind of got this sense that Ellie's immune to everything. She's immune to the infection. She can get bit. She's still going to survive. But Tess, you know, lets her know you're not immune from being ripped apart, and wants her to really understand that. And for the first time, you kind of see a little bit of fear in Ellie. Like, yes, maybe you're immune from getting affected, but they will rip you apart. you're not immune from that.
Yeah. No, I do love that line because you got to remember these are monsters. they're
Yeah.
not they're not like they're not here to be nice to you just because they can't infect you. They're still gonna eat you.
Yeah, so they come up to this building. What building is this, Ender? Do you know?
This is the museum.
The museum. Okay, so they come up to the museum, and it is covered in this fungus that they just talked about, how it's all interconnected.
Yeah, and then this is also, you gotta remember from the other way, isn't this the like, oh fuck, we're gonna die way? Like,
Yeah.
we're not going the good way anymore because we can't.
Because everything was blocked. So they are going the we're gonna die way. They go up to this fungus, and I'm thinking, didn't you just say you couldn't like mess with this stuff? Joel ends up smashing it and realizes it's completely dried out. So I'm assuming at this point that means that fungus is dead.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to say as he's looking at it. And I think that's the only reason he goes inside is because if this fungus is dead, then it's not connected to anything. There's really nothing living inside of there. But you see this guy who's obviously fresh.
Yeah, as soon as they get inside, Ellie finds a guy who's completely fresh. She's, again, drops the F-bomb. Cracks me up.
Yeah, I mean, like, just, and he's kind of shredded. It's not a bite. This is something mauled this guy and hurt him. It wasn't just trying to infect him like all these other ones. So we're getting to the next level of creature in this, and this is where I really want to kind of point out where I think, and I didn't watch The Walking Dead, but from what I heard and a lot of what I watched, and my wife watched it, where these shows really start to differ, because The Walking Dead, from what I understand, the zombies were just the zombies. Like, they never changed. There wasn't different levels of them. There wasn't anything like
they were as the show went on, but for the most part, the majority of the show, they were one type of zombie.
Yeah,
correct.
They're just one type of zombies. Now here you're gonna realize that they're not all the same. Not everything's created equal here. And a lot of it has to go back to time. Like, how long has it infected the body? How long can the body stay alive?
Yeah, so we cut through, and as they're talking about this person being dead, Ellie starts to say, they say maybe somebody would hear and all this. And Tess and Joel are whispering, but Ellie kind of speaks loudly. Who would hear? And Joel freaks out immediately and is like, quiet. And she whispers, who would hear? Are you saying an infected did that? And she basically says, I was attacked by one, and it wasn't anything like that. So now Ellie's like very confused on what is happening here. And Joel basically says, from this point forward, we are silent. And I love how he reiterates it, because I started thinking about The Quiet Place, about how that was silent. There's a difference between being quiet and silent. And Joel, I feel like, did a great job here, like making sure she understood we are not being quiet. We are being silent. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I have to reiterate that to my kids all the time, of the difference between, being quiet and being silent. Like, there's times for each. As they come up the steps, you do get Ellie stepping directly on one of the spores, making a giant noise.
Yeah.
And then you also, as they walk into the Civil War room, which again, this is one of the main locations of the museum in the game. So they nailed this. Like, the set looks the same. Again, one of those iconic things where I don't really care what they do inside of here. They could change the whole thing that happens in here. But the fact that they nail the set makes me feel like I'm back in that nostalgia. Like, okay, I got an idea of what's going to happen. So it'd be nice for them to take some liberties in how all of this plays out moving forward, to give me some Easter eggs or things that I don't know. Yeah. But I will say, for me, the anticipation of what's going to happen, knowing what's going to happen, was almost worse than the anticipation of my wife waiting, that had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah. Now what you start hearing is this clicking noise as they enter that room. So we know those are going to be the clickers. And you realize that the clickers can't see you, but they have incredible sense. Again, brought me back to A Quiet Place. It was a perfect example of of how something like this would play out.
Yeah, I think The Quiet Place definitely were fans of this game when they were going through it.
So eventually we, the clicker's kind of moving around. And I think at this point we still think there's just one, or maybe one, where we don't know what's going on.
So was it just me, or when they're looking at the clicker through the glass, did you think of Jurassic Park?
Yeah, a little
with
bit.
the T-Rex, like
Yeah.
looking
Or
through
the
the car, like
raptor.
immediately.
Yeah.
No, the T-Rex in the
T-Rex
car.
looking through the car. Yeah.
He's like, be silent, he can't see you. And then I'm like, who's gonna turn the flashlight on? But these
Yeah.
guys, it doesn't matter. So the other thing I did see on Twitter a lot was like, turn off your flashlights. They can't see. Like they have nothing. There's no light. Light doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
It's literally they can only hear, and the clicking is a little bit of like an echolocation that they've learned how to use in order to like find their way around. So that's why when they're moving, they click so they know what's in front of them, and that's how they got the name of clickers.
So they eventually make some noise here, and you see this clicker turn its face, and you get a full in the flashlight headshot of this
Dude,
clicker,
they
and you
did
realize this
phenomenal.
fungus is coming out of this thing, and you got to imagine, okay, yes, shoot him in the head is pretty standard. You've already seen it happen in the show, but that fungus, I imagine, is almost acting like a helmet.
I don't know, but it almost looks like they did such a good job here. It looks like it's blooming. Like it's like the top of a mushroom blooming.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel bad saying it, but it's gorgeously horrific. Like they did a beautiful job here.
So we go through this whole fight scene, and there, I'm not sure how much you want to kind of break this down, but we do get to a part where Joel tells everyone to run.
Well, I think this is your standard scene. Like they're trying to get away from these clickers. They know they can't make any noise. I mean, you see Joel's putting multiple bullets into this guy.
Yeah, then he's trying to reload with super silent as well. I thought that was a good touch.
And then he also knocks over a statue in order to like make the clicker move one direction or the other. You have a moment where they step on glass. That's kind of an homage to the game of like, why is there random glass on the floor everywhere?
Yeah, but they're in a museum with display cases, and I obviously, to me, that was a throwback to the game where she's tucked in right behind him, and they're sneaking across, a display, and then of course he steps on the glass, which makes that clicker go just racing towards them, and now he's the clicker's on top of Ellie. She's trying to fight this thing off.
Well, he jumps on Joel first, and you're thinking like between both of them really, and Ellie is in there, like she's trying to get this guy off of him, helping him, because she kind of knows like if it bites me, it doesn't matter. If it bites Joel, there's a problem. Yeah,
and there's this scene. I gotta pause right now as I'm looking at it, where you see Joel's watch again, and it looks like this thing is about to bite, but he's got his forearm underneath its throat. And of course, you see Ellie gets her arm in there as well, trying to protect Joel. And eventually they shoot this thing to hell. It gets back up, it comes at them. And right as it's about to kill them, Joel gets some more shots on it and ends up.
Well, I was really pissed about Joel. Like, this thing's down, and he just puts like 4 more rounds in it. I'm like, Joel, you don't have that many rounds. Yeah. Like, conserve your ammo.
Listen, but in other scary movies, we'd be yelling that you didn't put the extra ammo into them.
But still, it's like when you play this game, because I've played it on the hardest modes, like there's not a lot of ammo. You spend most of this game with 0 ammunition, 0 weapons, and you're just like, Joel, conserve your ammo. Come on.
So they just like you said, doesn't conserve his ammo. Another clicker starts running towards them, and right as the clicker starts to get to them, they think they're done for. Tess comes across with some sort of hatchet.
Dude, she puts that axe right in the side of this dude's head.
And they put it down. Joel picks up another gun and is able to blow it away.
See, that's more like her hitting it with the hatchet, and then like there was some like crowbars and things like that. That's more of the game. Like that's how you had to kill these things. You either got past them or you were fighting melee.
And then, of course, everyone's asking if everyone's okay. Joel says you're okay, and Tess is like, well, I have a twisted ankle, but I'm okay. She asks Ellie, are you okay? And she says, well, I didn't shit my pants, so I guess I'm... So immediately kind of brings us back to that little bit of humor. But she rolls up her sleeve and goes, are you fucking kidding me? And you see that she's bit, which cracks me up. She's literally bit on the exact same spot. She looks like she's
scratched. It didn't look like a bite.
Yeah, but she says, I mean, if it was going to happen to anyone, I guess it's better to happen to me. Cuts to Tess immediately after that. Maybe a little bit of foreshadowing there. We'll talk about that soon. It cuts over to Joel. Then Tess says, let's get the fuck out of here. They climb out of a window. They go to the roof. And this must be another throwback to the game because you see a plank connecting two roofs.
Yeah, they exit the museum the same way that they exit in the game, and this walking across planks is something that you have to do a lot in the game. You have to find different planks to connect you to different buildings, because like there's infected like below you and beneath you, and you're trying to get around, and a lot of the stuff's been bombed, so you can't get there. And then this scene is directly out of the game. Again, where they're
No, I
standing
don't know
there.
if Ellie is scared in the game, but it's funny that they say, hey, it's probably scary. And she's like, this is wood. That was scary. And she just walks all the way across to the other roof, no problem. And Joel tells her to wait there to give us a minute.
Yeah, so I mean, that scene, all of this is kind of cut. The one thing also is, you see the Golden Dome. That's where they're trying to get.
Yeah.
In this scene, and the cool thing about this game is normally, you get these really broad shots that they're showing you here, and you're always trying to get to the gold. Like that's kind of the thing. There's always like this gold thing you're trying to get to. But again, I kind of go back to what I said before. I don't think there was a better way of doing that. Like, why would you change that scene? It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's the great interaction between them. And it also, since they did skip the scene in the towers, they're starting to try to show Joel is becoming more accepting of Ellie.
But he's still freaking out. I do want to bring this up here.
He's still freaking out
because as he's trying to tape up Tessa's ankle, and this is where we know that she got bit a second time, because he says, well, the first bite, but what about the second bite? And Tess stops him and starts to freak out. And this is years of watching The Walking Dead. I immediately looked at my wife and said, well, she's going to die. She was bit. And she's like, how do you know? And I go, I just know. But she starts yelling at Joel saying, stop it. Like, she's special. Like, you need to take this serious. Try to take some good news for once. And just the way she was behaving, and she was freaking out at Joel, like, immediately told me she was probably bitten.
Yeah. You can make that assumption from.
She says, like maybe for once we could take the actual win. And she says, she basically like, I'll wrap up the rest of my ankle, go and watch her. And Tess just kind of puts her head down. Now, of course, this is the scene you were discussing. Joel gets across the bridge, looks at her, and they have that iconic scene. And she says, it looks beautiful, as they're looking out at the dome.
Yeah, but again, they did skip over like a big portion of basically Ellie saving Joel. And I don't know if they're going to do that in the future, of like, she kills one of the clickers. Like, they didn't have that in here, and that's where like they start kind of that's why they're doing these out of a little bit out of sequence of where they're going. They're going to some of the same places, but they're also not doing them in the same sequence. So certain events haven't happened that would have already happened.
So they finally get to this Gold Dome courthouse, state house that they're trying to get to. And as they're tucked in behind some cars, I kind of laughed. I was like, this is like a classic beginning of a scene in any video game, third person cover shooter. They're tucked in there, and they realize, this should be a bunch of Firefly agents should be here. Like, we should not be. Basically, I thought, okay, yeah, we definitely shouldn't be getting this close without them knowing that we're here. And they see a truck up there. Joel kind of goes up to it, checks in, and realizes that someone just looks like it's just been.
So part of me thought Joel was just going to open up the hood, take the battery, and be like, I'm fucking out. Like, part of me just felt like that. The way his character has been so long, he was just going to take that battery and just walk on away. Like, I've got her here. I'm taking my battery. I'm leaving. I don't really care if nobody's around.
Yeah, I can definitely see how you draw that conclusion for sure. Then next thing you know, see Tess grabs Ellie. They run inside. Joel's like, whoa, 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 whoa. They get in there, and everybody's dead. And what you realize is it looks like one of them has gotten infected, and basically they just all killed each other.
Yeah, I mean, that becomes the distrust, isn't it? Like, are you infected? No, I'm not infected. Are you infected? No. And someone pulls the trigger, everybody shoots, everybody's dead.
And this is definitely a little bit different from the game. I think in the game, this has to do with the gun running that they were doing, and there's kind of a shootout here that happens, but so a little bit different. And they start to play into some of the seeds they've been planting throughout the first couple of episodes. And that's where, she's like, Fedra must have did this. He's like, no. One of them got bit, and like you said, they kind of all shot each other
Yeah.
because you start to have that trust. Tess is freaking out. She's looking for a radio. She wants to call ahead.
Radio or a map. I mean, and she's not wrong here. And again, a lot of this dialogue is out of the game. But again, like, what are you gonna do when you get in there? It's like, is there a radio? Is there a map? Do they have something? Like, where are we supposed to be going? Like, these guys have to have something to tell them how to get to and from different places. They're not just memorizing everything.
Yeah, so they're asking Ellie, where were you going to go? And basically, Ellie's like, I don't know, just west. They were going to take me west. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And they're looking for a map on one of them. There's got to be something. And she's like, Joel, help me. And he's like, Tess, it's over. And they're fighting back and forth, going on and on and on. And Joel's like,
hits Ellie.
Let's go back. And Tess is like, I'm staying here. She's like, I mean, our luck had to run out sooner or later. And then it definitely hits Ellie, where Ellie points out she's infected.
Yeah.
Joel wants to see it. We see it.
And then you can really see how much just in that short period of time. Again, she's bit in the neck area. So she has 5 to 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, but it's clearly been longer than that.
Yeah. So she's fighting. She's fighting here.
Yeah, but she's close to being gone.
But then she's like, look at Ellie's arm. Like, Ellie's arm has been even
3
longer,
weeks.
and it's it's nothing compared to hers. This is real.
She's like, this is real. And she basically says, it's almost like Tess has had all these feelings for Joel all this time, and she has accepted the fact that Joel's humanity is gone, and he cannot feel love, and he cannot feel the same for her. But she also knows that there has to have been something between the two of them. Something had to be there. So do this, like, take that something, bring yourself back, finish this, take her to Tommy, take her west, take her wherever, but see this through. Like, you do this for us, or do this for me. And so you have this kind of heartfelt moment, and Joel kind of reluctantly it's like he doesn't want to say yes at all, but then one of them wakes up that he's infected. Joel walks over and shoots it, and then you see the fungus moving from its hand, and they realize, and this is from the foreshadowing with halfway through the episode, where they told Ellie about all the infected and how they're connected, and if you stumble one on one side, dozens from a different spot.
But here's the key, is that it was infected in a spot where it could get its hand to open ground.
Open ground, yeah.
Like, that was the thing. Like, they're all laying on this concrete, and there's nothing there. But when he kills one and he can get his hand on grass and moss, then the spores go into that moss and call the horde, man. And you see the horde get up, and
they are hauling. Fuck. They are full on moving.
Yeah, it's World War Z, man. These guys move. They don't fuck around. They're not walking anywhere slow.
Yeah. So Tess is like, maybe we have a minute. You got to get out of here. She starts dumping gasoline barrels, throwing hand grenades on the ground. There's gas everywhere. Joel's still kind of just in this bewilderment of.
Well, I think Joel's also at a space.
He's in shock.
I think he does feel for her, and he's like, I think in his mind he's like, is this really fucking happening again? Like, are we really here?
Yeah. Now, what I find interesting is Joel eventually snaps to it and accepts it. And he grabs Ellie and they start running, and Ellie fights her. She's like, we're not leaving her. Yeah. But, you do understand that she's gone either way. So she pulls out this lighter, and she's struggling with getting this lighter going. Now, I don't know, Ender, if this is the fungus. Like, she's trying to fight the fungus, so the fungus isn't letting her flick the lighter. Like the fungus, does the fungus?
It's a couple of things. I think one, you saw her hand shaking.
Yeah.
And like, she's struggling to do motor skills, but you can also see as she gets to this, the other infected looks at her. Like, I think it's definitely the fungus trying to take over. This has been longer than the time frame that they said she should be infected. So she's fighting this a whole lot more. And then we kind of get this disgusting kiss of death moment.
This kiss of death, it's definitely different, especially Walking Dead or something like that. The infected would come over, even if you were slightly infected, it would literally just start tearing you to shreds and biting you. But this infected comes over. He's trying to get his, Tobey Maguire makeout session.
I think he's trying to turn her completely. Like, I think he sees, like, okay, you're fighting this. You're not my food.
Yeah.
right now. I don't need my goal is to infect and turn more than destroy. Like I think that is the difference here. And then while the kiss of death is happening, she finally gets the lighter flicked and drops it on the floor, and
We cut to
boom.
Joel and Ellie outside as the explosion happens.
Yeah, and she ends a lot of those guys, and you kind of get this stare where Joel just kind of accepts it and continues to roll on, and then you kind of get Ellie turning around looking at Joel walking away of like, really, like holy shit, this is realer than I thought it was going to be. And she takes this really deep breath, and just this shot that they have of her just standing there in front of this building with the American flag after we just like, I didn't think you could make yourself feel more hopeless until you look at this scene, and it's just like,
Yeah.
fuck, my goodness, like, is there any hope for these people at all? Regardless of the fact that these two got out, it's like, this is what we have just trying to get out. What are we going to get when we get into the wild? Like, we're not even to the areas that they're really concerned about.
Yeah, but she is the hope, right? So
She is, and now the hope is with the worst of them, as you could put it. It's not, they're not with the best of them anymore. They're dealing with the worst, and Joel's gonna have to figure out how to get past all of his previous issues and take care of this girl and get her to where she needs to be.
So Ender, I liked the episode. I think it does hit. Like I said, I'm interested to see where it goes, how much it starts to deviate from the show, especially adding in how the fungus can speak to each other. I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. I think they're going to lean into that. And again, does it keep up the trend of having some sort of past flashback that ties in to the episode and ties into the first episode and the second episode?
Well,
We get
I
to
think
see
we're
a
gonna get
little bit
all
more.
of the flashbacks as like, I think the flashbacks are gonna be all the DLC. I think you're gonna find out the DLC, the backstory of Ellie more as they move forward. But I don't really know how much more backstory you can get unless you're gonna like move out of Jakarta and move into like the US, making the decisions on what they did and where the bombings were and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of played into being able to do some more backstory there on like how the US tried to contain it and how they weren't able to contain it. So you have free range to go wherever you want with the backstory, because we don't know.
Yeah.
We have headlines of newspapers and the time stopped on that day, so you can pretty much fill in whatever happened in the past.
Yeah. So your final thoughts? You enjoyed it?
I enjoyed the episode. I understand where they deviated. I understood where they stayed the same. I think it was a very impactful episode. My only problem with this episode, and it's not a problem. I kind of feel bad for such a powerhouse actress to only have 2 episodes. So I'm really hoping they do some more flashbacks and bring her back, of maybe like the backstory of her and Joel, of how they met or how they got together, or like, things like that, because the actress that plays Tess is just a phenomenal actress and is heavily undersold. When she was in Fringe was, like you said, done at the wrong time. So super undersold, and I was actually surprised when they walked into the museum in this episode, because I was like, oh shit, if they're going into the museum, that means they're going to be going to the state building right after it, and we're gonna lose one. Like, we know you kind of already know where you're going with that, and I'm like, damn it, I really like this actress. But I also think it hits home of how people are gonna die.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like a Game of Thrones moment of like, this is a big actress, and it's not as hard hitting as like Ned Stark losing his head, but you also kind of have to look at it as like, this is not a small actress, this is not a small part, this is not a small character, and she's gone. One bite, we're done. Like, that's how dangerous this world really is, and how careful you have to be, because the second you have a scratch, it's over.
Yep.
So overall, I think it was a great episode. My wife was, I'm no longer watching the episodes with my wife after this one. because she hides and can't let the dogs out at night, or can't walk upstairs by herself, or every creak in the floor now freaks her out because it sounds like clickers. So I'll be watching them all by myself on my own, instead of in the same room, because I just don't think she's gonna be able to handle this, because we got a lot more to come here, James. We got a lot more to come. We are just in the infancy of this story.
Absolutely.
All right, that is Two Dudes That Game That Reviews. I really got to come up with a thing. I don't know what to call it. Reviewing stuff. That's what I'm calling it. This is the reviewing stuff segment of Two Dudes That Game.
Two Dudes the TV.
Leaving it at that game. No, not Two Dudes TV, because it's reviewing stuff. We're just reviewing stuff here, man. It might be TV, it might be movies, it might be a cool new taint tickler that James has that he needs to do a review on, of how much he likes it. If you don't know what we're talking about there, which you wouldn't know what I'm talking about there, go watch past Two Dudes That Game podcast episodes and you'll find out what we are talking about. A little bit of news. I know it's been around a while, and I'm probably gonna make a second video for this, but James and I have made the executive decisions of our company of two to condense everything down to the Two Dudes That Game brand, and the Last Choice Network is now going to be a parent brand. It's not going to be its own YouTube channel or anything. So if you see that, we have rebranded everything into Two Dudes That Game, and then the Last Choice is now just for James's other podcast that he does, Parents vs. Gaming. So if you're really interested and you're a parent out there and you have questions about what games are good for your kids, all of the different things, they bring on some great guests and things like that. Please tune in there. They're also on, you guys do that live on Facebook and Twitch as
we
well?
do it live on Kia Kane's Twitch channel.
Cool. Yeah. So
one Sunday a month, we record all 4 episodes.
Cool. So you guys have that ability to see that, and then everything else has been condensed down to just Two Dudes That Game, and we're really going to be driving hard this year to continue the gaming side, and really kind of like what we're doing here. This is about a game, so we're going to review it. Hoping to get some different game reviews in there. We have the news updates that I've been doing for quick news that's out there. And then also our weekly podcast that will be hosted at that time. So thank you for everyone that has followed us and done everything. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share, do all of those things. I'm Ender. That guy over there is James. We're out.